And welcome back. Well, years ago, there seemed to be only one type of treatment for alcohol addiction. Many people in recovery will say they found help with a 12-step program like AA.
But now many experts support new and different ways for people to also get help with alcoholism. John Hyatt is the CEO and president of Impact 211, a free service in our community to help people find help and resources for things like alcohol addiction and many other issues, too. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about a great event coming up, too, where people can help support the services, free services you provide to our community. And I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it again this year. I feel like it wasn't all that long ago that if you heard somebody was in recovery, particularly for alcohol, it was always AA. And nothing wrong with that program. A lot of people will say their life was saved by the program. Still important, but it isn't the only path.
It isn't. And back in those days, too, there were, you remember, 28 or 30-day programs where you would go and be inpatient, do your 28 or 38 days, and then come out, and then it's kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? AA was one of those places, but now treatments have developed, they've become more sophisticated, and so you have outpatient programs, intensive outpatient programs, you have medication treatment, and so there are different ways that people recover now. And people recover in different ways, right? So some people go cold turkey, which we don't recommend, can be risky, and depending on what you're using, can even be lethal. People get into traditional programs, they use medication, and they go to support groups. And generally what's most helpful is a combination of all of that. So counseling, medication, and support for yourself and even for the people in your family or your loved ones.
How is that so different from years ago, and why is it important that it's different?
Well, medications are completely different, and even in the old days, medications were even frowned on, so you're giving medication or drugs to a person that's an alcoholic or a drug addict, and now we realize those things really go together. So if you're suffering from anxiety or depression or a mental health issue, and even some medications now that are targeted specifically at recovery from drug or substances.
Are people having more success in not just quitting the habit but then thriving because things have evolved, in your opinion?
Yep. And so even the way that we think about recovery now is different. We used to talk about the relapses and so thought of them as failures, and it's an illness of relapses, but now we're talking about exactly as you say, how can people thrive and how many days of thriving do they have? And you might have a relapse and then you just pick up and you, like any other illness, you get back in the saddle and you keep going on again. So,
I like that that's viewed as a part of the process many times, because I think that's where people could feel shame or feel like they're not good enough to follow through with the treatment, and knowing that that may be a part of it, I think is probably very empowering to people who are trying to have a better life for themselves and stop a cycle. When you're getting calls, especially at 211, are you seeing more women, more men? Is it fairly equal? What are you seeing in
there are probably more men that call. I think it's even still a little bit taboo for women to come forward. That's one of the sort of things that we're trying to overcome. What we have is a lot of family members calling. So there are probably actually more family members calling than there are people calling for themselves.
Are they asking how can they help their loved one?
Yep. I think they have a problem, or I know that they have a problem, and I've either tried talking with them or I haven't tried, so it hasn't worked, or how can you help me figure out a different strategy to talk to them to get them maybe to take the next step.
And what help can you offer? Because I think that's such a tricky thing. You love someone and you see their life really kind of crumbling before you because of this habit.
So it's easy to get angry and it's easy to be frustrated, and it's important though to keep coming from a place of I care about you and I love you. And for us, we say have them get to another person that's a third party, that's not a family member, that's not so emotionally invested, and to just hear what that person's thoughts are about your loved one's situation, so they can hear it in a different way. They're not hearing about it as an angry husband or wife or parent. They're just hearing it as a healthcare professional saying, I've worked with lots of people in this situation, and in your particular case, here are my thoughts about what might be helpful.
I have a family member that got help for alcoholism, and his wife found that for her, getting help was just as important. How important do you see that for the loved ones or caregivers to find help for themselves?
Both for the individual, the family member, to get care for themselves, because it can be really stressful and difficult and you're trying to maintain your own health and sanity. But we also know that the recovery of the person that has the problem goes way up.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful when you have people around you that understand what you're going through and how to be helpful.
We've had this wonderful focus on alcohol addiction in your visits here to the Morning Blend, but there are so many other services that you provide, resources for so many different issues, such a wide span from homelessness and joblessness to trauma and crisis, addiction, substance abuse, all these different things. And this event that you're having next week on Thursday, September 19th is important for that reason, to support these free services in our community and all these trained professionals who help people on the phone when they call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The event is called Higher Ground, a Love Story. It's happening Thursday, September 19th from 5:30 to 7:30. It's at the Wisconsin Club. I'll be there. I'm excited to share a very important story of a father who had a child who suffered with alcohol addiction. And you can call for tickets, 414-302-6624, or go online for tickets, impactinc.org. And as always, you can always call Impact to get the services that we talked about, because they're all about helping change lives for the good. It's 211, an easy number to remember.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you. Thank you.